What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another car review. This is of course the 2021 Toyota RAV4 Prime. Huge thanks to Toyota for providing me here with the all-new RAV4 Prime to review for you guys today. So about the RAV4 Prime, well, this is a really exciting new model here in the RAV4 lineup. And so, I mean, it's a pretty revolutionary thing. When this debuted at the LA Auto Show back in the fall of 2019, this was actually the car I was the most excited about at the LA Auto Show, just because it has such potential. I mean, the RAV4 is the #1 selling passenger vehicle here outside of the F-150 in the United States, and it just, the fact they sell so many, and then this one has 42 miles of electric range, it really gives you the best of both worlds. You still have a powerful gasoline engine whenever you aren't able to charge, but whenever you do have that charge, then you can have totally emissions-free driving and have that electric experience. So it really is the best of both worlds, I think, in a lot of ways. And I think it looks fantastic too. They nicely jazzed up the styling here on the Prime version of the RAV4. So this one is in the supersonic red color, which is exclusive to the Prime, and looks really good with this black roof. This whole two-tone combo looks so good. That's something you get only on the XSE versions here with the two-tone combo, in case you don't like that. Toyota was really one of the first to restart this whole two-tone trend that started with the Camry, actually, when they offered that with a black roof, and now to have it on the RAV4, I think it looks really, really good. Other things that look great, so the XSE versions get those little accent lights there beneath the headlights, which look very cool. You still have these very nice LED headlamps up front here, and I also like the glossy black trim, which nicely makes this look a little bit more expensive, I think, than other RAV4s, which sometimes have some cheaper plastic there in the front bumper. This looks a little bit more upscale. This looks like the mid $40,000 vehicle that it is, and doesn't look like it's, you know, some $20,000 or $30,000 SUV that then happens to have a battery in it. I think it actually, looks the part, looks really sharp. You also have these 19-inch wheels, which is also another thing exclusive to the XSE versions of the Prime here, and is the largest wheel ever offered on a RAV4, and I think they're pretty attractive. Otherwise, you just have your plug-in hybrid badges and all-wheel drive badges there to highlight some of the features of this vehicle. And going out to the back there, I think it also looks pretty good. More of that black trim. The only little critique I will say is that silver piece that you have right there by the taillights doesn't seem to blend in with anything else on this vehicle. There's no other light gray plastic on this vehicle aside from that. It just looks kind of out of place. I wish that was gloss black like all the rest of the rear area is there. But that's a very easy fix. You could just wrap that with vinyl or something, I'm sure, and have it blend in a lot better. But other than that, the RAV4 continues to be a little bit more boxy here for this generation, a little more bold looking than the previous generation, and overall I still think it looks really, really good. All right, so start up and go for a drive. The RAV4 Prime actually has a unique key here for the Prime version. It's a little bit thicker, has a couple extra buttons there on the back because you can actually turn on the heating or the air conditioning, and the battery will warm up the vehicle ahead of time, kind of like a remote start. And so that's nice that that's built in there, and it's a pretty cool key. It's just plastic, nothing too fancy, but I do like the glossy parts. And overall, a pretty cool key, I think, and it's not too big still. But of course, it's keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start here in the RAV4 Prime. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the power button, and it starts right up. It just turns on. Depending on your battery charge, it will either kick on the gas engine immediately, or it will, try and start up and do everything on the electric power alone. Also, if you're curious to hear about the interior in the RAV4 Prime, my wife and I actually did a full in-depth interior review on the RAV4 Prime, so you can go watch that. I'll link it above. We'll go into all the details on this interior. All right, so setting off here in the RAV4 Prime. So I've been really excited to drive this vehicle ever since they announced it, and so lots of stuff to take in here. First, if you're used to a normal RAV4 hybrid, it's going to be pretty similar from the get-go. You have very good visibility. All of these new RAV4s are fantastic. Nice thin A-pillars, nice little window here. The mirrors are off onto the doors, so very easy to see around everything. It's just excellent visibility, so that's really great. You are sitting up a tiny bit higher here in the Prime because the battery hangs down a little bit lower here in the Prime version, so they had to lift up the vehicle, I think, about an inch or so, just to give you the same amount of ground clearance as you get in a regular RAV4. So you might notice that if you're a RAV4 aficionado, but otherwise it's going to feel very much the same. Brakes also have the same feeling as the regular hybrids, where you can feel it's a tiny bit odd, but it is almost perfect with how seamless it is, and does a really good job. Other things here, you have a nice and quiet ride. They actually said for the Prime version, they have laminated side front glass here, and also a little bit more sound deadening, so that whenever you're driving in EV mode, you don't hear as much road noise that would usually be drowned out with engine noise in a normal RAV4. And also, since this one's a little bit more expensive, they wanted to quiet it down a little bit to fit in line with that price tag you get here on the Prime versions. Other things here. Now, this vehicle, like I said, can do 42 miles of electric range, but this one was dropped off to me with a dead battery, basically, as far as the electric power goes. And so this is going to be relying a lot on the gasoline engine here. I'm going to be recharging it after I do this little drive loop here, and we'll be testing out the EV driving mode extensively here throughout the next few days. But I just want to let you know that's why, if the engine's kicking on more than you would expect for a vehicle that's a plug-in hybrid, that's why. Thankfully, though, Toyota has said that it will still do the same 5.7 second 0 to 60 time, even if the battery is almost drained, because it always keeps enough juice in that battery to give you that acceleration, unless it is like just completely dead, which this has a little bit of juice in it, so we should still be able to do a normal acceleration and see how it does. You won't be able to do a 0 to 60 in EV mode, but you will be able to do one here with the gas engine helping you out. So we'll go ahead and put it into the sport driving mode, put the transmission, it doesn't really have a transmission, we'll put that into sport mode too, and let's turn down onto this back road here and see how it does. And here we go. Oh man! Chirps the tires and then takes off. Wow. All right. Man, that 302 horsepower does not disappoint. And I really love, so the suspension setup's a little bit softer here, so the whole front end lifts up, and it feels like you're like drag racing or something, how much you feel like it's really taking off and launching into the stars. And it's so immediate with the electric power too that it really gives this a ton of punch. Man, oh man, this thing does not mess around. That 5.7 seconds 0 to 60 time, by the way, is conservative. That's Toyota's claim. Car and Driver actually managed to get 5.4 seconds, and I 100% believe that. I think theirs was without the, they got rid of the rollout, which is about 0.3 seconds. That's how they got down to that 5.4. But man, oh man, this thing, even whenever you're just kind of cruising, you just do like half throttle, whew, it does not mess around. This thing flies. So it's very impressive. If you do want to do a completely electric 0 to 60 with, a battery that has a decent amount of charge in it, you can still do that in 9.2 seconds. So that kind of goes to show you just how powerful the electric motors are here in the RAV4 Prime, that, it can still be faster in a drag race than like a Subaru Crosstrek or something like that, even in EV mode. So you have about 177 of those horsepower that come from the gasoline engine, and then you have about 179 pound-feet of torque as well, I believe, that comes from that gas engine, same as a regular RAV4 hybrid. But then you have two electric motors in the front that are from the Highlander hybrid, and then you have the same electric motor in the rear from a regular RAV4 hybrid. So there isn't any extra power in the rear over a regular hybrid RAV4. It's just in the front, which is why you get that front wheel spin, because there is a ton of power going through the front wheels there, and it is pretty bonkers. Now, the electric motors, I can give you all the specs for them, but they don't add up. If you were to actually add up the peak power of all the electric motors and the gas engine all combined, you'd be over 400 horsepower, but for some reason it doesn't do 400 horsepower combined. We're at 302. Torque figures aren't given by Toyota, by the way, in their hybrids, but I would say that it's definitely very healthy. But anyway, we're coming up some corners here, and let's see how the RAV4 Prime handles them. So we got some nice light steering. Okay, so the tires, I can hear them complaining a tiny bit, with some spirited cornering here, but it's not bad. So it has these 19-inch wheels, and we are on slightly wider tires. They're 235 wide Yokohama Avid all-season tires versus the 225s you normally get on a RAV4. So a little bit of extra width, and man, I could feel that electric motor wanted to kick in back there and kind of bring the tail around, but then stability control intervened and kept everything in line. And so yes, it will give you a little bit of a neutral feeling with that electric motor in the back, which is so punchy since it's instant power from the electric motors there. But this is still going to feel like a front biased all-wheel drive system, because you just have so much power going through those front wheels, and so I don't think you can really balance this too much. I mean, it does feel fairly neutral, and again, the 19-inch wheels give you a little bit of better cornering ability as well. But really, the big thing that holds the RAV4 Prime back a little bit with its handling is its curb weight. So these weigh roughly about 500 pounds heavier than a regular hybrid RAV4. 500 pounds is a big chunk of change in any vehicle, and so that puts this around, this XSE, Toyota claims is about 4,300 pounds. If you went for a regular SE version without some of the toys this one has, you'd be around 4,230, I believe they said. So 4,300 pounds. Car and Driver claims is about 4,400 pounds. They claim the weight gain is almost 600 pounds over a regular hybrid. So, it is, heavy. You feel that weight a little bit. Now, the good thing with the extra weight is it's all in those batteries for the most part. I mean, you have the extra electric motor in the front, but most of that is the batteries, which are nice and low in the vehicle. So I think you technically will have a lower center of gravity, even though you have a little bit of an extra lift in the suspension and all that extra weight. It does handle itself pretty well, I will say, but it's not super sporty, and I still don't think it is the best handling vehicle in its class. I think the Mazda CX-5 still has it beat, but I think this is still towards the top of the class as far as handling. It's just that you can't defy physics, and whenever you throw, an extra 500 pounds into a corner, you're going to feel that a little bit. And obviously they tuned the RAV4 suspension for extra comfort, and so it will give you a little bit of extra lean just because this is a family cruiser and this isn't supposed to be some type of sports car or something. But that's just, interesting thing to note there. That time it really wanted to spin the tires, and you feel some torque steer through the front wheels too. So those who love their front wheel drive hot hatches, you'll feel right at home in this, but then you still have the all-weather traction with the rear electric motor and stuff. But it's really kind of funny how much it wants to trip those tires. It just goes to show how much of a hot rod this really is and just how responsive it is. Anyone who's ever driven a Tesla or any kind of electric vehicle knows how immediate that power is. You don't have to wait for an engine to get to a higher RPM to make that peak power. It's instant and instantaneous. And yes, this gas engine, has to rev itself up to give you the full-blown 302 horsepower, but you have that instant thrust of the electric motor, and it is addicting. And like I suspected, this kind of is the best of both worlds, because again, you have that electric instant punch and that giggle factor that you get out of electric powered vehicles, but then you still have the gas engine to get you home, so you don't have to worry about your range all the time. You don't have to worry about charging and sitting at a gas station for 50 minutes waiting for your vehicle to charge up and stuff. It's just instant. But man, this thing is so much fun. I like the regular RAV4, but this blows it out of the water. Hands down, this is the enthusiast one, because I think it does handle itself pretty well too. Well, it's not amazing or anything. It still is an SUV. I would love to see them do a TRD version of the RAV4 Prime. That would, maybe have a little bit of a stiffer suspension setup. But even as this sits, if I needed an SUV, this would probably be my top pick. There's some others, that are a little bit more expensive that might be a little more appealing from a sportier standpoint. But I think for the value you get out of this, being able to save so much money with the electric range and everything, it really, I think, makes a lot of sense. You're going to save a ton of money. You still have all the power you want, all the range you want, and you still have the fun electric thing whenever you're in the mood for it too. It's really, like I said, really the best of both worlds. Other things though, so I'm going to put it back into the sport mode, and we have these paddle shifters here, and they will kind of give you more aggressive ratios to give you a little bit of a shift feeling, but it really doesn't do much. So I think mostly what the paddle shifters are for is to help you with some regen. So I did try it out whenever I was going down a hill earlier to try and charge up this battery a little bit, and whenever you downshift, it will kind of give you some additional regen there, but it doesn't feel like electric regen. It feels more like your engine braking, but it is actually putting more power, more electricity back into that battery whenever you do that regen. But yeah, I'm upshifting and I feel no shift points. And that makes sense because there isn't any real transmission in this vehicle. That electric power is going straight to the wheels and stuff. And the engine's kind of just a one-to-one kind of drive to it. And so, yeah, but whenever you do downshift, that's where you're going to notice it regens more and more. So these paddle shifters are only on the XSE version of the RAV4 Prime, by the way, so you have to go for an XSE to get them. If you're an enthusiast, it is kind of fun to be able to control your own regen, and that's something I'm going to play around with a lot more. If you just are wanting an economical RAV4, you're not going to miss the paddle shifters, and yeah, you might get a little bit of extra, electricity out of that regen, but it's something most average consumers aren't going to want to mess with, and you're better off just, leaving it alone and letting it do its own thing, because it is so intelligent with the way that it maximizes your range and whatnot. But yes, overall, I am very pleasantly surprised with the way this thing drives. And a couple other things to note here. So, it's very refined with the way that it switches on and off with the gas engine. And when I'm parked, actually, even without the radio on, I didn't even realize the gas engine was kicking on, except I felt a little nudge, and I was like, it almost felt like someone bumped into me or something. And then I was like, oh wait, it says it's not in EV mode anymore. It's actually kicking on the gas engine, but it really is very refined. I mean, the engine can get a little bit loud if you stomp on it. you know, then it will get noisy, but that's because you're flooring it. And by the way, if you are in EV mode, you can floor it. It will not kick on that gas engine if you're in the EV mode. So you can use all those electric motors have to do that 0 to 60 run or merge onto the highway or whatever in electric mode. And it's not like some others where they just force you to be like, all right, here's the engine because you floored it. There isn't any feathering of the gas pedal you need to do in that EV mode. It will just hold that EV power, and that's it. And so that's great that it does that. And I also love how you can keep tabs on what's going on. You know, there's a little power meter thing which shows you where the power is flowing, how it's regenerating electricity and discharging the battery and all that kind of stuff. It does it all so well, and the way that it just, you know, shows that information to you. I like that you still have an analog battery gauge too, so it's not like there's a million displays going on. It's very digestible for someone who, you know, isn't some electric car fan. You know, you can hop in this and, like I said, have the best of both worlds. But anyway, there's a lot of other really nerdy things I can dig into here with the RAV4 Prime. I'm going to save that until after I've driven this vehicle for a couple of days. So thanks to Toyota, I will be driving this vehicle for a couple more days here, and then I'll come back and give you guys my real-world fuel economy and how much I was able to rely on that electric range. And I'll also come back and actually show you what it's like to drive in full EV mode, and then also anything else I noticed here during my week of driving, and also talking about the pricing a little bit. Alright, so now I've been driving for a couple more days here in the RAV4 Prime, and I was able to charge it up the first night that I had it here, and was able to you know, charge it overnight. So I just did a standard 110 volt power outlet because I don't have any kind of fast charger at my house, since I don't own an electric vehicle or anything. But so it was quoting me about 12 hours and 10 minutes to charge overnight on that standard power outlet, which for most people who, you know, have normal hours and sleep through the night and stuff, that's going to be plenty fast enough. And I think the battery should be a little bit healthier and last a little bit longer if you're not doing fast charging all the time. But with this premium one, you can do some faster charging times, especially the XSE Premium comes with a 6.6 kilowatt charger, so you can knock it down if you're on a 240 volt. You can also knock it down to 2.5 hours of recharge time. If you don't have the XSE Premium with its faster charger, then it'll be 4.5 hours on a 240 volt, and that also should be plenty quick enough, I think, for most people, because again, you have the gas engine to fall back on. You know, if you need to keep going and you don't have time to charge up, it's not the end of the world. You still have a very fuel efficient gas engine, and we'll still continue on with the electrified hybrid operation like any other RAV4 hybrid. And so yeah, I've been driving around primarily in electric mode for the rest of the time I've been driving the RAV4 here. If I had one of these, I'd charge it every night, and for the normal, you know, target runs and stuff like that I do, I would never even turn on the gas engine. And I was curious with this car, I just left it in the automatic, like normal standard mode. So I didn't do anything special. I'm just a normal average person getting into this vehicle, hitting the start button and going, and it wants to default to electric only for as much of the time as it possibly can. And so even in that auto mode where it will have the option to go into hybrid mode, it wasn't going into hybrid mode unless I really forced it to, honestly. Even if I was doing some heavy throttle applications, it would still try and defer to that electric mode almost exclusively. So it seems like it wants to drain that battery before it starts involving the gas engine. Again, unless you're doing a 0 to 60 run in hybrid mode or something, then it will gladly kick on the gas engine. Also, when we were on the highway, I tried to force it into electric only mode, and it was able to merge. It had plenty of electric punch to do highway passing and maneuvers and all that kind of stuff. But I did notice that even in the electric mode, it would kick on the gas engine if it felt like it wanted to for whatever random reason. And it wasn't always dependent on throttle position or anything. It was very imprecise with why it was kicking on. So I think there's obviously more complicated stuff going on behind the scenes as to why it does what it does, but just know that when you're in electric mode, it still might kick on the gas engine sometimes, at least at highway speeds. And also, I mean, the electric mode will go up to 84 miles per hour on EV power only if you want to, but if you're beyond 84 miles an hour, then it will kick on the gas engine. And so that's the only limitation of these electric motors. Otherwise, it's so much punch. And you know, the previous plug-in hybrids I've driven from like Volvo and stuff like that, they had very weak, like 80 horsepower electric motors, and in a 4,500 pound vehicle like those Volvos, I mean, it was slow, and you had to really feather the gas to keep it in electric mode. And even if you forced it into EV mode, you were going really slow. This has so much power, I never felt like I needed more power in EV mode, and that's why I would basically drive this like an electric car, I think, if I owned one of these, aside from road trips or the rare occurrence where I need to really have that, you know, 5.7 seconds 0 to 60, where I want the absolute max performance. And whenever you do hit the gas in that hybrid mode, it is impressive to me. It still was putting a grin on my face. Just because you have so much power. It has the gas engine with its good power, and then those electric motors are really addicting, and I really love it. Other things I love about this vehicle are just its refinement. You know, I was worried maybe the 19-inch wheels this has would maybe make the ride a little firmer, because that often happens when you go to larger wheels on vehicles, but this is still such a smooth and comfortable ride. And yeah, the suspension isn't as sporty as I would personally like as an enthusiast, but I didn't find myself, it doesn't feel sloppy either. I can go around corners, I can throw it in corners, do emergency maneuvers and things like that, and it still is very composed. And I think the sound deadening is so good too, because you have the laminated side front windows here and the extra sound deadening. It has a little bit more of a luxurious experience than I'm used to in, you know, this generation RAV4, which I've already reviewed, you know, a couple of times. It does a really good job of making this feel worthy of its mid $40,000 price tag. Yeah, that's one thing to mention, is the pricing here of the RAV4 Prime. So they are a little bit more pricey, of course, because you have the more powerful electric motors and things like that. But it's not too bad whenever you consider that there is a $7,500 tax credit that, you know, most people seem to be eligible for, that will knock down the price of this whenever you look at all things considered. Obviously, you're still paying the price tag, you know, and you're paying the car payment without the $7,500 discount. But whenever you know, put that into play, if you refinance after you take the credit or whatever, you know, you are coming out right around where a normal hybrid RAV4 would be price-wise. And then you factor in the fact that you're barely ever burning any kind of gas, so you're saving a bunch of money there too. I mean, I think that overall this would probably, the RAV4 Prime would pay for itself as far as, you know, the extra upcharge for the Prime component. And you also get the much nicer features here of the Prime, a lot of the exclusive stuff. Like this one is, again, an XSE Premium. There is also an SE, which is cheaper, has cloth seats, a little less snazzy looking on the outside there. You don't get those LED lights in the front bumper and stuff, and a few other little sacrifices you make. But even the SE bare bones version comes pretty nicely equipped. You still get heated seats, you still get an 8-inch touchscreen, all kinds of, you know, nice stuff like that. And so it's not like that's even, you know, a stripped down version, and those start around $38,000. This one, as tested, it also has this red paint, which is $425 extra, and this one has this XSE Premium, which does give you a ton of extra features like the cooled seats, the heads-up display, the digital rearview mirror, the panoramic sunroof, the faster charger, and a bunch of other things. There's a ton of content in that package, which is why that package is about $5,000 more over a regular XSE. But with that package included, this one, as tested, is going to be just, I think it's about $48,730, so just under 49 grand, which, yes, is high for a RAV4. But then you take off the $7,500 plus whatever discount your state gives you for buying a plug-in hybrid vehicle, and, you know, realistically, you're probably looking at something close to $40,000, all things considered. Again, looking at it in that context, having something that's as fast as this is, you know, you don't get this kind of power in the compact SUV segment unless you go up to the luxury stuff. You know, something like an Acura RDX, which starts in the mid 40s and then it goes up to almost 50 grand for a nice one, you know, and then you don't have the electric stuff in those. But even if the electric thing doesn't impress you and that doesn't excite you, this is just a better hybrid, you know, because aside from in the city, that's the only place where you lose a little bit of fuel economy. You only sacrifice 1 mile per gallon in the city because of the extra weight of the batteries here. On the highway, you do actually get 2 better MPG on the highway over the regular hybrid version, and you get 2 better MPG combined as well. It does 94 MPGe, which again is factoring in that you know, electric range and all that kind of stuff. And so in my driving here, I've driven it about 76 miles now, and whenever I force it into that hybrid mode here, it's saying that my average MPG has been 54.8 MPG. I don't know if that's factoring in the electric component or not, but either way, I'm doing phenomenal electric range and phenomenal fuel economy here. I mean, the fuel gauge has just gone down 1 tick from full in my almost 77 miles of driving now. And also, the electric range is a little bit better, at least according to the onboard computer here, than what Toyota claims. They claim 42 miles, but it was telling me 44 miles whenever it was fully charged up. And I've been driving a bunch here, and like I said, it's hard to count exactly how many of those miles were done electrically, but it's now saying that I have 8 miles of electric range left, even after, you know, about a day and a half of driving here, just doing normal commuting around town and stuff. And so you know, it's just going to stretch your gas so far. I think they claim 600 miles of range total, you know, with all things considered, with the electric range and the gas range. It's just it's going to save you so much money because you never have to fill this thing up basically, and it's obviously very cheap to charge at home if you do it overnight and stuff like that. And so it just, again, every angle I look at this, it is a fantastic value. It's a fantastic experience. I love driving it. I really love this vehicle. And I mean, yes, to a lot of people, a RAV4 isn't a super exciting vehicle, but this is an exciting RAV4. I get excited hopping in this. It's kind of a fun game to maximize your efficiency as well with the electric component. It's just fun to have that instant G of being pushed back in your seat at the slightest tip into the gas because of those powerful electric motors. I just think this is really a sweet spot where I think this is positioned, if they can build enough of these, this really could be the plug-in hybrid vehicle that kind of changes the world, I think, as far as, you know, Americans want to have the range. They want to be able to drive across the country if they want to. We drive long distances a lot, and so you have the gas engine to do that, but then you finally have a plug-in hybrid vehicle that has a lot of electric punch, that actually has usable real electric range that's long enough for most people's commutes every single day, with 42 miles of electric range. And the fact that you can actually use exclusively the electric motors and do everything you need to do on that, I think it really could revolutionize a lot of people's commutes and help people to save a ton of money, and, you know, have a vehicle that also, I must add, is going to be a lot more reliable probably than a Tesla, better build quality than a Tesla, all those types of things. I'm not knocking Tesla. They're also very impressive for what they are, but personally, you know, I'd rather not have to worry about range. I'd rather not have to worry about build quality stuff or repair issues or things like that. And with the Toyota, you have one of the most reliable car makers in the world that's been building hybrids, by the way. They invented the hybrid with the Prius, basically. They know how to do electric motors. They know how to do these batteries, which, by the way, this battery is warranted for 10 years, 150,000 miles. So no worries on the battery. No worries on any of that stuff because it's a Toyota. And they did it very, very well. They executed this perfectly. I think this is one of the most brilliant things that come out of Toyota in their history. Like, I am so blown away by the RAV4 Prime. And if I needed a family SUV, honestly, this is what I would pick. Yes, there are sportier options that would be tempting to me, even if I did have more money to spend. But I think just the brilliance of the electric component, the brilliance of, you know, having something worry-free, trouble-free. It's something that I think looks pretty cool too, with this red paint, the two-tone. You have all the tech you want, you have all the comfort you want. It does it all. I am really struggling to find any kind of fault whatsoever here with the RAV4 Prime. The only thing that isn't great about the RAV4 Prime is that simply you might not be able to get one. It's going to be kind of hard to get them here, especially in 2020. Toyota has said they're only going to be able to build about 5,000 of these this year, which means it's really going to be hard to get one. You know, dealers are going to get very few of them, and dealers will either mark them up or have some kind of raffle for who gets the right to buy it. And so that's going to be unfortunate. So, you know, if you're not one of the diehard people who must have this immediately, wait till next year. They're saying next year that they will have, they're going to be building about 20,000 next year, which is still lower than I would have liked to see personally, considering the regular hybrid version of the RAV4 accounts for a large chunk of RAV4 sales, and considering they sell over like 300,000 RAV4s a year, and a good chunk of those are hybrid, I really think that once people, you know, kind of see the benefits of the Prime version, they can sell 100,000 of these a year easily. And I hope that they can ramp up production to eventually get to that point, because if you have hundreds and thousands of these you know, plug-in hybrid vehicles that are driving on mostly electricity most of the time, I think it's going to really increase the widespread adoption of electric commuting a lot more. And I think like I said, I just wish they would build more of them because they're fantastic. And I know that batteries are limited and all that kind of stuff. It's not really Toyota's fault. They're not doing this artificially to drive up demand or anything. But it's just kind of a shame, because this vehicle is a brilliant vehicle that only a few people will get to enjoy for the first year or two here, until, you know, they actually start making them more widespread and they're able to keep up with demand. But man, if you can get your hands on one of these things, I 100% recommend it. I personally wish that I had a need for a four-door SUV, because if I did, I'd probably be in line with the rest of you trying to get one of these. I honestly love it that much, and if the time comes that I do need an SUV, I very well could end up with one of these myself. That is how much I love it, and if that's not a high enough endorsement, I don't know what is. I can't give it any higher praise than that. So yes, love the RAV4 Prime. You probably will too. It's a fantastic vehicle. So anyway, that's enough of me sitting here drooling all over this thing. Let me know your thoughts on the RAV4 Prime in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.